Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness.
This is episode 103.
Hi, everyone. It's Julie Wilson, and I'm here today with Elise Seifert.
Hey, Julie.
How are you?
I am excellent.
So today, I thought we could talk about different ways, if you really want to change your life, saying goodbye to different habits. The actual title of the article is, If You Really Want to Change Your Life, Say Goodbye to These 12 Habits. It was posted on the Expert Editor on July 7th, 2023, and it's by Brendan Brown. So I thought we could talk about the 12. The first one is seeking external approval, trust your own judgment.
This is a hard one. I think I'm always seeking approval. I think I'm a people pleaser, so I'm always seeking approval from others in the actions that I do, either in my personal life or at work. So trying to find that internal approval is something that I'm definitely working on.
And having the confidence in trusting that, particularly if it's an area that you work in, you're passionate about, really trusting yourself or having that confidence that what I'm saying is valid, is real. And that's hard. That's hard to do sometimes.
Very hard, I think, especially as women. Sometimes we don't feel as proud to speak out about things that we even are experts in.
And I think when we're applying for jobs, when you're always looking for that external piece to validate that, oh, yes, she can do that, rather than just, I know I can do that. So let me say that. Let me promote that. The second one is unhealthy comparison. Embrace your unique journey. So I think this is talking about comparing yourself to others always. What's that saying about the neighbor, when you're always comparing yourself to the Joneses?
Yeah, the grass is always greener. And I know when we're young, it seems easy to compare yourself to others in your age range because you're all kind of doing the same things together. Imagine you're in a classroom, you're taking the same tests. You're doing the same gym activities. It's very easy to compare yourself. Whereas when you grow older, you start to find your journey, and everyone's journey is quite different. And it's hard to see maybe some people doing things that you thought you would do sooner, like getting their career, starting their family, getting married, and maybe you're doing something else. So it's hard because they're completely different journeys, but you've grown up comparing yourself to them.
Exactly. And as you said, everyone takes a different path, a different journey. And really, we should be happy for those journeys, happy for the ways or the directions that others take, rather than, as we did growing up, comparing ourselves and seeing what everyone's doing sort of the same, that just be happy for the other person. It's tough to do, but ultimately, in the end, it makes you a much happier person.
I think that's beautiful, kind of channeling the comparison into celebration. The third habit is procrastination. Take action towards your goals.
Procrastination. That's tough for some folks. I know. My husband, for example, he's a great procrastinator, but when he gets it done, he gets it done.
I know for me, checklists help a lot with procrastination. I love checklists. I love checking things off. I get so much satisfaction from that. So that helps me to stay ahead.
Checklists are great. I'm getting to the point where I have a list to remember what's on my list. So
the fourth habit we have is negative self-talk. Cultivate self-compassion and positive affirmations.
Self-talk's really important. That constant negative, am I doing this right? Well, how about you switch that up and saying, oh, this is great. I am doing this the correct way. Just be kind to yourself.
Definitely. And I love a good positive affirmation. I think telling yourself, I can do this, or I can do hard things, can make a world of difference to help improve your self-talk.
Or in the morning, I look good. I feel good. Start your day off with that self-love, positivity. So the fifth one is dwelling on the past. Embrace the power of now. Living in the now. I have to work on that every day. What I find is really important with cell phones, talking about living in the now, viewing something through a phone, I'm like, put the phone down and live in the moment, live in the now. How many times do you actually go back and review those videos? But if you're living in the now and that's planted on your mind, I don't know, I think it's really important, those now moments.
I think so too. I know that's a lot of what I practice when I practice yoga is being present. And I think that's such an important part of yoga. And I know my yoga teacher always said, present your presence into the present. And I loved that.
Wow.
Our sixth habit is all or nothing thinking. Embrace the beauty of progress. I think a lot of times people are afraid to take a step, maybe career-wise or relationship-wise, because they think it won't be everything that they wanted, but understanding that you need to take the first step to get to what you want in the end, your ultimate goal.
There's a statement that they make in this article, and I love it. And it's embrace the process and focus on continuous improvement rather than perfection. And they also talk about adopting a growth mindset. Free yourself from unrealistic expectations. I think many of us find hard to do. We do set those unrealistic expectations. Freeing yourself from that can make a world of difference. The next one is neglecting self-care. Prioritize your well-being.
So important. This is really what we like to talk about on this show, is how to prioritize your well-being. So making sure that you're taking care of your physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
I think we have talked about so many of the ways that you can prioritize your well-being on this show. We've talked about things as mindfulness, yoga. I think you and I have talked about different hobbies or different things you can do in spending time in nature. It's just critical. Without health, you're so limited.
And number 8, we have surround yourself with negativity. Instead, cultivate positive relationships. So important to have those positive relationships in your life. And they can help because they share the same values as you, but they also help to support your personal growth.
I have friends who, when you need that good for your soul moment in time, you have those individuals who you can just reach out to them. It makes that moment in time good for your soul, good for you. Relationships are critical, those type of relationships. So the 9th one, fear of failure. Embrace the lessons within setbacks.
It's scary to put yourself out there in case you might fail. But I know before we started today, we talked about how failure helps you to learn and failure helps you to grow.
Definitely. The learning you can take from failure, so important.
I know in my classroom as a kindergarten teacher, we talk about making mistakes and how you learn a lot more from your mistakes than you learn from doing things right. If you get something right, you kind of just forget that information. But when you make a mistake, you correct it and then you learn even more from it.
So the 10th is excessive people pleasing. Set healthy boundaries. And I know you have a brilliant story with this one.
Well, I am a notorious people pleaser. And recently at work, I was asked to do something and I said no. And the response was, I never heard you say no before.
I love that. I think that is awesome when you told me that.
So it happened. It happened. It's very exciting.
It's a good thing to set boundaries, but it was just, that is hilarious.
I know. And my husband gives me a lot of flack for it too. He always tells me, you can say no. And I always think, can I? I don't think I can. I'm not very good with confrontation either. So I think to me, it seems kind of like a confrontational piece, but I'm working on it. I'm setting my own boundaries. I'm trying to understand for myself what's possible for me to do and what's not. So I think this is definitely a habit that I'm working on changing.
That's awesome. So the 11th is procrastinating on personal growth. commit to continuous learning. And I think we've talked about that, how important it is to continue to learn, how failure is a way of learning. So I think that this is an important lesson to take away, that continuous learning and self-improvement. You always looking for different ways to step out of your comfort zone and embrace lifelong learning.
Love that. And finally, we have neglecting gratitude. Cultivate an attitude of appreciation. I think this is probably a habit that's often overlooked. So just trying to change your mindset and making sure that you have a more positive and appreciative attitude.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. Today's interview is in the categories of mental and social wellness. When we last chatted with Chris Costa, he told us about getting into trouble while young, abusing substances after getting out of jail, and other challenges that he faced. And today we're focusing on how he uses those experiences to help other people. Welcome back, Chris.
Thanks for having me, John.
Chris Costa is an entrepreneur, athlete, and passionate community builder. He uses a love of running and sports to create positive change for others. He founded Change in Motion, a community support project that raises awareness and funds to support families experiencing domestic violence. He spoke about his experiences as a TEDx speaker. He's competed internationally for Team Canada as a masters athlete in the men's 400 meters and 800 meter events. And most recently, Chris walked 24 hours as part of a fundraiser to support Women's Crisis Center, Camino Mental Health and Wellbeing, and the Grand River Hospital Foundation. And you can find him on Sunday evenings as a volunteer in the Grand River Emergency Room. So Chris, let's pick up from where you decided to get sober and work forward towards your concept, choosing love, not fear. So just to set the scene, when we left, you had gotten back into running, but that was a lot more challenging than you remembered it. You were doing well, you were trying to work through your own trauma, but of course that's a challenging thing to keep working on. And you were working on sobriety. You talk about sobriety not being a straight line. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think anybody who's struggled with sobriety or substance abuse may end up struggling for the remainder of their lives with substance abuse. You know, it is something that sort of lives within us physically. We can be as mentally aware of the triggers that we have, but sometimes the physical ones are the ones that sneak up on us and sort of drag us back into that space.
I know from my own experience, first of all, I didn't know many people going through that. And so when I started looking into it a bit and talking to people about it, I did have the assumption in my mind that, okay, somebody decides that they want to change, they want to give it up for the rest of their life, and they feel strongly about it. I recognize that that only works if the person makes the decision themselves. But what I didn't think about was once you make that decision, I just assumed, poof, it's all going to be good. And I've heard from several people, though, that it's just so hard. Like every day is a challenge. And it's not unusual to take 3 steps forward and 1 back, and maybe 2 more forward and 3 back, and then 3 forward and 1 back. Is that kind of your experience? Yeah.
That's consistent for myself as well. It's something that, again, takes effort and, focus. And doing so to honor yourself, that your sobriety and your well-being is more important than, that short-term gratification you get from substance or the relief that substances bring. And that's why, you find most people taking that step back. There's some sort of pressure valve that, is satiated from being exercised. Yeah, it's definitely not a straight line. I think that it's a winding road that anybody who's experienced that will continue to live.
I'll be sure to include a link to your TEDx talk in the show notes so people can listen to that. Part of the thing that you said was what made a difference for you was you were finally able to put some supports around you. You had people around you and you put those supports up and you started talking to them more. What did that look like and how did that help?
Well, for me, I think once I made the conscious decision to change my life, they sort of gravitated towards me because my behaviors were starting to change. Returning to a sport takes a bit of time for the community to sort of adjust to you being in their space. And I wasn't just in one sport at that particular time. I actually joined the martial arts gym and was training as a kickboxer at the same time. So there was a number of people, because of my work ethic at the time. What had happened to me is, once I made that decision, it was an all or nothing scenario for me. I figured that there was only one way I was going to get out of this, and it was to give everything I had. So I went from sort of a leisurely set of activities throughout a week that were probably enough for most to a bit of an extreme. And that extreme helped me to disarm myself. I had no place to hide. And, so whatever it was that I was battling was going to come to the forefront. And that genuine way of expressing myself physically just started to draw more and more people in. And it was at that point where I started to get myself more and more involved in the community around me through the way that I was experiencing my own change.
My experience that I write about in my book is that I was a philosophy student and then a professional, and I kind of let myself go by getting way out of shape and whatnot. And so in my experience was when I finally got back in touch with physicality through exercise, eating in moderation, eating nutritious food, doing all that stuff, I had a bunch of breakthroughs about wellness and balance and whatnot. It sounds like what you're saying is you started to do a whole bunch of physical stuff, and that helped you kind of turn the corner or stabilize your goal to be sober and get back to where you wanted to be.
Yes. Yeah. Because now I was starting to live the life that I knew like I wanted for myself. And those types of connections, they only come through effort in that space. They're something that they were earned. And I found that in those spaces, they became invaluable because they were never with judgment. They were always very supportive, but they were support in a way that wasn't just a fluffy, you can do it. It was a show me you got it, right? So that was, that kept me honest throughout that change.
So Chris, now you've got a better support group around you. You seem more focused on relying on that support and working with them. You're doing more physical exercise. It really does sound optimistic. And then at a certain point, you say you made a public statement about choosing love, not fear. What happened there and what was the impact?
Yeah, I guess my declaration and my public declaration was an accountability exercise for me. And it was sort of inspired by a lot of the experiences I was having around myself and change. And it was just a way of me communicating my commitment, but then being able to use my commitment to help others. And that's when change emotions started to show up as well. So choose love, not fear was me literally and figuratively expressing my commitment, and then me realizing that commitment is something that I can turn into change for others. It was about not being fearful of change. The fear part existed and resonates so strongly with me even to this day. The love part was, had more to do with love, like loving yourself, but also having compassion and care for those around you that are having maybe either similar experiences or just living life in a way that maybe is challenging. And in my opinion, you have to do these things with actions and not just words. So that's when involvement in the community here in Waterloo just became more and more, connecting with Camino and then connecting with Women's Crisis Services, the hospital. I started getting directly involved and not just having this as an expression. Oh, I don't know exactly how to express that, but it was something that's then started following me around, and it was why. That's then why started to show up. That was it.
It's a wonderful expression, choose love, not fear. I've been gravitating to a few myself. So some of the ones I like, just so you know, is live life in every breath. Another one is choose optimism, because I believe it's a choice. And that kind of reminds me a little bit about what you're thinking too. Choose love, not fear. Choose optimism, not pessimism. It's a great sentiment, and I can see how it could be motivating. Tell me about change in motion. What's that about, and how did that start?
I recognized at some point that if I wanted to make some sort of change, that I think you need to put it in a way in which individuals can refer to it. But it was just a way for people to identify with my actions, right?
And what's the focus of the group? I know you talk about advocating against domestic violence.
Yeah, so it is focused on domestic violence. I guess, there's an element of mental health that's involved in that as well. But, it's to support our community in whatever way I can possible around domestic violence and mental health. And then Changing Motion, it's been in the community now for a few years. I think that in the world that we live in today is that there is a lot more words than there is real actions. And that's sort of where Changing Motion turned into some inspiration to walk for 24 hours as a way of showing real commitment. And I think that that's the other thing that I've been trying to convey in the work that I'm doing, is that there is real commitment to being present in our community and showing our community that, there are people that hear you. And there are people who are not in a clinical way alone, that there are, individuals in the community that have direct experience and commitment to be involved. And I guess that's still where Changing Motion is today. It's focused on that. And I think I will walk again for another 24 hours at some point in time. The hospital asked me if I was going to do it again, and I reluctantly agreed.
Did I hear you being interviewed on Mike Farwell one time about that?
I've been on the Mike Farwell show 3 times.
That's amazing. Yeah, I must have heard one time on the way to work or something.
Yeah, and that's part of the growth. That Choose Love Not Fear has turned my life from a sort of directionalist or living in a way that didn't feel genuine to myself or didn't honor the past experience in a way that I thought had any value to those around me. So that's sort of maybe the other driving factor, is that I'm trying to use that experience in a beneficial way before that experience has less impact. Like, I have to use it when it has impact. It has an expiration. So why sit there, with it in my hands and irresponsibly misuse it or use it for my own purposes? Because I don't think that's appropriate either.
Well, let me ask you, I can come back to that because I have questions touching on that, but I'm a big fan too of action speaks louder than words. And so it's great that you're actually taking action. The one thing I do wonder though, we've talked a lot of guests about what they get out of giving back and how enriching it is to give back through these kind of efforts. So I'm sure you could speak eloquently about that. My question though, which is a bit on the selfish side, which I think is okay and good, which is, do you think that giving back is helping you on your sobriety efforts? Like, does it make it a little easier to keep on the sobriety path by giving back and returning to the community?
Well, it's a reciprocating experience. Absolutely. And I think it was probably driving me forward more in the beginning than I felt like I was giving. I felt like I was getting a lot more. So when you said selfish, I agree that there's definitely an element of selfishness to it, but at some point it sort of levels out.
Yeah, like it's not pursuing a selfish goal. It's just that there's benefits to myself by pursuing community building, helping the community and the rest of it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's what I mean, is that like you may be doing it to continue to feed, your own changes. That's why I'm saying that leveling out, it becomes a more of a balance between I get just as much as the community does now out of everything that I do. And being involved in the community, like I see in the hospital every Sunday, just knowing that there's people in our community that are willing to help. I'm surprised by it at times, what it means to others. And I think when we lose track of the impacts that we can make on people as long as we're present, right? If we're available and giving in the world around us, you're going to be surprised at how many people are aware of it or become connected with you in doing that. Because I hear thank you at the hospital in weird times. I'm just doing what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, well, thank you. I just kind of move on. But it does catch me later when I walk home that evening where I'm like, I try to reflect on what is it that the world sees. Because again, maybe sometimes we lose track of those things. We're just trying to do what we can to help. And maybe we miss sometimes why others see us the way they do.
I'm going to ramble on just for a minute because a long time ago on the podcast, I talk about my concept of wellness not being a zero-sum game. And what that means, I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, but let's say, for example, there's only so much water in the world. If I get the water, you don't get it, right? So there's only so much. But my image of wellness is that it's not like that we can create wellness in a moment where it didn't exist or not. If I do something that contributes, I increase the wellness. If I decide not to do anything, I don't increase the wellness. So my concept is people like you're creating wellness. You're just generating it where you wouldn't otherwise unless you did the stuff you do. And so the concept is by working together, let's try and make this world overflow with it. So you're part of that team. Now, I'm going to turn to the question we ask every guest because we're getting toward the end. But there's something I just can't resist talking to you about. My book called Accidentally Well, the subtitle is Running Revived Me and Common Sense Saved Me. But really it could be Running Saved Me. So in my life, I got into running after I turned 50, and it was the right exercise for me for lots of reasons. I'm a slow runner. I hear about how you run and I just daydream that I could go that fast, but I just like being out there for the enjoyment of it. And so it kind of blew me away when I got connected to you because of other reasons. And I was listening to your TEDx for other reasons. And you say running saved my life more than once. And I thought, oh my gosh, like that's exactly how I feel. Tell me a little bit about that. How did you think that running saved your life more than once?
Well, I think it's repeated. Its presence in my life in a way that was substantial. I found it just starting in high school. I found it later in life as a way of trying to keep life in balance, knowing that that was a community that I understood and I knew. And then later in life as a way of giving back. And I think without that sport, my outcomes might have been very different. There would have been different outcomes if running wasn't a part of my life.
We are a show about wellness, and we explore 8 categories of wellness. And we ask people to think about whether they have different areas of wellness that are important to them in their life. And we recognize that nobody can keep them all going at any given time. So we do what's essentially a mini wellness check-in. And we ask, are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life? And if so, can you think of even one thing that you can do to foster wellness in that area?
I think maybe the area of wellness that is lower than I'd like it to be is likely spiritual. I used to meditate quite regularly, and I don't as often as I used to. I got a lot of benefit from that. And I found that it also gave me the ability to see those around me without judgment. It's a really good tool to keep perspective and connection with myself.
It's also hard work, and so it's easy for that kind of thing to slide back to the back burner when there's a lot of other stuff going on. So, okay, well, I wish you luck in getting back to it. And if you do, I hope it helps and helps balance things out. And Chris, thanks very much for 2 really interesting interviews. And more importantly, thanks so much for giving back to the community. And like I said, helping us maybe overflow a little bit more in wellness, creating wellness where it wasn't otherwise there.
Thank you, John.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of the Adventures of the Starving Artist. In just a few days, 2 of my friends, my brother and I, are headed up to Montreal to see one of my most favorite bands of all time, Meshuggah. Now, Meshuggah is a Yiddish word that means crazy, and I suppose you could describe this music as crazy. It's really intense. This is one of the heaviest bands that I know, and I really, really enjoy their music. As a musician, there's a lot for me to listen to there, similar to one of my other favorites I've talked about before called Vidyarta. Lots of cool stuff. There's polyrhythms for me to pull apart. There are weird flips of the time. There are anticipations and unexpected snare hits to try and count in place. For me, it's really stimulating and scintillating. I find I really jive with their music at an instrumental level, at an academic level, like a cerebral music theory level, and an emotional level. Like, I just connect with it really a lot. And I know that it's not for everybody in this particular genre. I totally get it. However, here's a quick sample. I promise there's no one yelling at you. This is just the instruments. Here's the opening from one of their tunes off their latest album called Kaleidoscope. So, you can hear it's pretty intense, right? Imagine that live in the space in Montreal. Oh, feeling the bass flow through you, letting the kick drums punch you in the chest. It is going to be so good. I can't wait. If you're curious, you should check out more of their music if you can stomach it. I know it's not for everyone. There's a ton of cool stuff. They've got a very long history, quite a lengthy discography, and yeah, they're one of my favorites. Also on this bill at the show is a band called In Flames, and I've covered one of their tunes at school when I was still studying, and another one called Whitechapel. Also covered some of their stuff while I was at school. All three of these bands are very different, but all fall under the umbrella of metal. So it's going to be a pretty cool show. I can't wait to go, to be honest. This is one of those where not only am I excited just because, you know, it's always fun to go see a concert. For me, this is one of like my top bands ever to go see. And I don't know if I'll get another chance to see them. So I'm so excited. Wish me luck. Hopefully the travel is smooth. We're taking the train, so should be pretty sweet. Train from Ottawa to Montreal is not bad. And yeah, I can't wait to go get myself a Meshuggah t-shirt and take it all in. For now, that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic week. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
We don't have any ads yet, and that's on purpose. We're sharing stories and experiences to give back, to inspire, and get people talking about wellness. 2 quick points. My personality is to present things in a progression. Once I cover a point, I often don't go back to it. If you want to see the whole picture about wellness I'm trying to paint, listen to all our episodes from the start. Second, it's costly to put out a podcast. You can help me defray that cost by buying my book, Accidentally Well by John Webster. It's available on Amazon, Indigo, or anywhere you buy books online. Please consider buying a copy.
Move that body like we're meant to do.
Hey, Sheila, I have some exercise discussion questions for you.
Okay.
So I found these questions on printdiscussion.com, exercise conversation questions. And the first one we're going to talk about is just a fun one. We're wondering, how do you dress when you work out? Do you try to look fashionable?
Okay. Well, the most important thing that I do when I'm working out, like for dressing, is to make sure I can move. It drives me crazy when I go to the gym and people are wearing like jeans or like shoes that aren't like running shoes and, you know, things like that. I really need to make sure I'm not just comfortable, but like can move. My top's not going to fly up when I'm doing something upside down, or my hands aren't going to get stuck in something, right? When you're going up and down or back and forth or carrying something. So for me, it's most important that I can move. And of course, I love to stretch. So I have to be able to stretch without my pants falling down or falling up or my shirt, you know what I mean? So that's most important for me. And then when it comes to fashion, no, I don't really care at all. Not at all. But I do wear Lululemon stuff a lot. And that's not because I'm trying to be fashionable or like, ooh, it's Lululemon. It's because it's amazing. You can
So functional.
You can get exactly what you want. Like for me, I'm short, so I can get the length that I want. I like high rise, not low rise, right? So you can get that. It has little pockets in it, so you can put, you know, cords or your key or whatever, you know. So I love Lululemon for that. So there you go.
I completely agree. I know I prioritize functionality over looks. So I definitely focus on the leggings. I like to wear leggings just because they cover more.
Exactly.
And I need to make sure that they're going to stay up. I don't want them to fall down.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of my shirts, I usually just wear my cheapest, oldest t-shirt that I could possibly find. I don't care about looking fashionable because I sweat a lot at the gym.
So much. I usually wear sports tops. So like I have these 2 tops, which I'm finding really hard to find anymore, but they have like a sports bra built into it and it goes all the way down. Like, so it's a top with a sports bra. So I only have to wear that one and it's awesome. But now what I find I'm wearing is like the sports bra and then a tight shirt over top of it. That's also stretchy. But like you said, it covers everything so that when I'm moving, I don't like my midriff showing at all. So I don't want that. That's what I wear. So that's great.
All right. Now here is our second discussion question. A lot of people tend to exercise a lot. Do you think exercise can be addictive?
Yes, I do think that exercise can be addictive. But I also think that you can control that. So if you're working towards a certain goal, for example, I can use John because he's running a marathon. So he's trying to reach a goal, or maybe he's trying to get his time a little better. So you're working hard. He's out there running, and he's got a schedule, and then he's got to do his weights, and you almost get addicted to that feeling. But I think once you get the goal, it kind of tapers off. So like we talk about in wellness, that it's okay to sacrifice some other aspects of wellness in order to achieve your goal in that particular wellness that you're working on right now. But I do think that you need to assess. You need to just check in once in a while and make sure that that at least you're aware of what you're doing, that the benefits outweigh the negative things, and you're checking all your wellness things. You're sleeping enough, you're eating enough. Your muscles, you're listening to your body, like all that is working out, is working okay. You stop or you slow down or whatever you need to do. Because generally, if you get addicted to exercising, you're doing it too much, something's going to give, right?
Yeah, you'll definitely burn out.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I definitely went through phases of that when I was in university, where I would be at the gym 7 days a week, 2 hours a day for a couple months. And then I would just completely burn out.
Right.
Because it's just not sustainable. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's so important to really find a schedule that works best for you and find ways to exercise that keeps you coming back and makes you motivated to exercise.
Yeah, because I find whenever I did get addicted to exercising, it was because I was doing one thing over and over and over again. Like, for example, when I started doing yoga, you got like 3 months for a really good price. So I wanted to use it as much as possible. And I was going and going and going. And then you get kind of addicted to the feeling of it and the stretch and the movement and stuff. So then, like you said, you kind of taper off, you get burnt out, or so it's so much better if you can do a variety of things. Do one yoga class, do one Pilates class, do a weight workout. Like, try and vary it so that it doesn't become addictive too much and you're not overusing any one particular muscle.
Definitely.
Yeah. But working out, it makes just talking about it makes me want to go out there and do it.
There's a thought. Popped up while running.
Okay, I'm still a little bit out of breath. It's Boxing Day, but this probably won't be aired till sometime mid to late January. A couple of weeks ago, I did a pop-up about following the process. I want to try and just follow the process, hopefully for a few months, to try and get myself back on track after I've fallen off of doing weights and core and putting on weight, which makes running harder and the rest of it. And today was a perfect example of, I realized when I was out there how I did something today that I haven't been doing recently. And today I do a session where I run, it's about 1 kilometer away. There's a cemetery and there's a circle in the middle. It's just under 500 meters. And my goal is to do 6 times, 1 fast loop and then a recovery loop. Fast loop, recovery loop, do that 6 times. I had started doing that a few months back, and right off the bat, I started to make some good progress, and I was timing myself. So I would time my fast laps. And it was kind of cool because I could see over a course of weeks, I was getting faster and faster. Then I kind of fell off things and I stopped doing that, including I wasn't doing that high intensity stuff, which I had been doing twice a week. When I decided at one point to try and get back into it, I was heading over there and thinking, oh my gosh, I feel terrible. There's no way I can do those speeds I was doing before. And I don't think I actively, mentally thought of this, but I'm pretty sure the reason why I didn't finish was because subconsciously it was bothering me. I ended up going, I can't do 6. I can't do 6. I'll do 3, maybe 4. There were a few weeks when I was still doing it, but not feeling great about it, where I was always finding a reason not to do 6. Then I kind of fell off things even more. So by the next time I was going to go out, I didn't even really want to do it. I found a different kind of run to do. So I'm now back to trying to follow the process. And my process is a couple times a week to do high intensity training sessions with that kind of burst and slow, 6 times. Not 3, not 4, 6. So what happens? I'm out there today and I'm not feeling great. I'm feeling better because I'm getting back into it, but I'm not feeling great. So I know that I can't do the speeds that I was doing before. And my idea is follow the process. Don't worry about results. So I wasn't looking at my watch. I just pushed it, and I could tell when I was pushing it wasn't as fast as I had been before. It didn't matter. Just push it. And I did 3, and then I did 4, and then I did 5, and then I did 6. And I realized if I had been focusing on the outcome, I would have probably talked myself out of finishing. But of course, the joy of all this is if I can keep doing the process and keep doing the 6, I'm going to improve my VO2 max. So a great lesson for me today that following the process is a great way to go. There might be a time down the road when I'm back to where I want to be. And then for certain reasons, I want to time myself. But right now, just got to keep going out there. And I hope I keep going out there and having that feeling that makes me go, yeah, keep doing it. Do your 6, do the process. Don't worry, get back home.
It's me. Am I?
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin.
So, John, you told me that you were going to do a pop-up about all the things that you changed in 2023 because of the podcast.
I did do one. So I have recorded it after I told you I was going to. And it was really cool. I just had a pop-up about that. I was running and I was thinking, wow, because it's a very action-based approach to wellness. We're trying to figure out activities that foster wellness and then do them. When we hear about ideas that will increase one of the categories of wellness, well, we try and fit them in and start doing them. And I realized, wow, there were a whole bunch of stuff I did. So I kind of went through a list.
Yeah, so I wanted to actually do that too. So I thought we could do it together. Yeah, so on my list, the number one thing that I am getting out of the podcast, I feel, is that I actually think about my actions a little bit more. I'm a real doer, which I say all the time, but so I didn't really think, but what I'm doing. Now I'm often thinking before I do something, wait, will this benefit me or not benefit me? And what am I giving up in order to do this? So I'm thinking more of my overall wellness.
So do you mean
in every action I do? So I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, this would be a nice rhythm. Not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think what you're saying is before you just went do something, now you're thinking, okay, if I do something, it's going to take some time. Is it worth it? Should I be doing this versus something else? And just that quick check-in, like, yeah, this is something I should do. Or it could be neutral. It could just be like, well, I'm just going to do this. But sometimes at least you're saying, no, I'm not going to do this because it's not worth my time, basically. Yeah,
it's either not worth my time or it doesn't need to be done right now. Maybe there's something else that I should be doing.
With priority.
With my priorities. Maybe I should prioritize something else that my body needs. Like, even when people ask me to do things, I think about it before I agree to do, which is something that I usually didn't do.
Well, what's really interesting about that is the refinement I'm making to kind of my theory right now is before I talk about pick your areas of wellness, figure out the activities that foster each area, do those activities. You do have to find balance. Well, now I'm really thinking about the activity of balancing. And that's what I think you're talking about. So one of the activities you've added is the one that I think is going to be kind of the breakthrough that I'm going to be thinking more about and talking more about in 2024, which is the act of balancing is kind of a special act. It's kind of like a super activity because you need to keep doing that as part of the check-in, but also ideally, like what you're doing, it just kind of kicks in before you do some stuff, almost like muscle memory.
Yeah. So like if someone asks me to teach, for example, and I obviously think if I have the schedule, if I have time, but then when I realize I have time for it, okay, wait, am I giving myself, I know that's going to help with my financial wellness because I'll get paid and maybe my social, but what about my physical or what about my sleep or what about my health or what about my relationship? You know what I mean? I need to think about all these other things I'm giving up to do that, you know?
Yeah, because at a certain time you had a sore knee, so it was inflaming that. And is it better to get the knee feeling better? But I think I'm talking too much over top of you. What are some of the other things the other activities that you did in 2023 that you might not have done?
Okay, the other main one was environmental. I was really trying to be more conscious of the world around me. Like, especially when you're hearing about the indigenous culture or the Hindu, how they praise the earth and the sky and
they appreciate all the elements. And they take time to do that.
So I have taken time to do that. Like sometimes anyway, so I try and take time to do that, but I'm also trying to be more environmental.
Right.
Trying not to drive as much, trying to carpool when I can, trying to...
We're reducing waste in our house.
Yeah, reducing...
We're using less stuff.
Yeah, reusing, recycling so much more. I don't like buying coffees anymore. I like to use a real coffee container, a mug or whatever you call it, So I don't like to get a to-go coffee because of the container, of the waste.
Well, this one's really great because where I'm trying to make a connection to the podcast helping me, and it sounds like you, is I think before I wasn't really thinking about environmental wellness as a category of well-being. And that's something that's really changed my mind too. When you heard from Tova Davidson and others, like we have to take care of the environment because it has such an impact on our everyday lives. And there's a lot of stuff we can do in that regard.
Yeah, because you've talked about it a lot on the podcast, like even on What's on Your Mind when they were talking about ways to conserve water, and how you don't have to wash your clothes every single time you wear them, just that kind of stuff. So I think that for me, those were the main things that I've gotten out of the podcast. So
okay, well, even just running through a list, I know we're running out of time, but could you run through a list and is there anything else?
Another one is active listening, which I've talked about a lot. I've been really working on that. Also varying my workouts. Cool. I've been working on that. And I feel like I've been budgeting more.
That's great. Yeah, I know. We actually last year, when we went to see the financial planner to kind of update our retirement plan, we took some time to try to guesstimate on the budgeting so we could get a sense of things.
And I feel like, we can work on our budgeting.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
I think all those are kind of interesting.
I don't think I want to go to the point of making a list in 2024 when I do things, but I do like this exercise at the end of the year to think back and say, what are some of the things I changed? Activities that I'm doing that are fostering wellness and in the end, making me feel better. And especially that act of balancing, that's a special one. And I think as we get that more under control, we'll have less episodes where we feel like we're crashed and we're really off.
Right.
Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
It's sign-off time. It's Elise here with John and Sheila.
Hi.
Hello.
Well, it's been a snowy week here for me. We got about 30 to 40 centimeters of snow over the weekend. So I kind of was just in hibernation mode, which was really nice. And I've been getting into video games, which I've never really been interested in before. I know. We got this Hogwarts Legacy game. So I'm really into Harry Potter. I love the theme. So I've been really into that. And I'm kind of understanding why people like video games now. It only took me many years, but I've been really enjoying that. And looking forward to this week. I'm just continuing with my workout routine. Last week, I was kind of just getting back into it after the holidays. And this week, it's really starting to feel good. So I'm really looking forward to that. How about you, Sheila?
Well, I had a very similar comment. We had our little snowstorm a day before you did, and we got quite a bit of snow, and then we were plowing and shoveling and hibernating a little bit. But I feel like this was the first week for me that was almost back to normal. I got my workouts in, I worked a normal routine, and I feel like it's starting to get back to normal, eating better. So I'm really happy with that. And I agree, I am also feeling better. So I'm really happy. And hopefully that will continue for me. What about you, John?
Well, first of all, warning, Elise, it runs in our family that if you start getting into video games, you get addicted. So be careful. I was addicted to video games for so long. Your brothers, could be you next. So I've got a couple things. First, I ended up for the first time this year having to do my 10-kilometer run on a treadmill because there is this storm. And I do think it's very interesting because it seems like from the news from the US that they're getting hit a lot harder than us, which is just unusual.
it's been strange lately seeing them get hit by snowstorms and stuff where we're getting some, but it's not brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So I was worried because it's always tough to do 10 kilometers on a treadmill. It can get boring and whatever, but it went really well. So I was really thrilled about that. And we do have an update too. On episodes 89 and 90, we interviewed Reverend Nora Futon, and she had been facing a terminal cancer diagnosis. And then on episode 94, she talked about MAID, medical assistance in dying. Well, regrettably, Nora Futon passed away last Wednesday. Now, the good news is she passed away with family and friends. When I heard that, again, I just thought back and thought how much I appreciated her coming and talking to us at that time, which I think I would have had a really hard time doing if it was me.
It was so honest and genuine. Yes, it was amazing.
And the episode 91, which we call In the End, Beauty All Around, just kind of amazing now to know that what she was thinking and the beauty that she saw in the end. So I don't really know where to go from there. So why don't I just say thanks again, Reverend Nora, sending our sympathies to her family and friends. And we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for joining us.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.